This is just sort of a continuation of the last one because I run out of memory on the phone, but I was talking about the spin of the Merkaba. Um, Sometimes I'm sort of hesitant, even though I realize I don't get thousands and thousands of views. The reason I put this stuff up there is sort of multitasking, okay? Um, with the AI, so to speak. It's simply information that I put into the field and the reasons I put it in there. Um, but for those that do, because they become aware of what I become aware of or what I am aware of, okay? Because as I probably said, God, I don't know how many times I mentioned this. It's called The Last Dance with the Devil, if you want to call it The Last Dance with the Devil, okay? There's a mountain of light in here. Just an unbelievable amount of light in here and very powerful spirit in here, okay? Because we won the timeline. And which is no time, okay? Eternal light is eternity, right? And when you know these things as a child, that you're an eternal being, there are things that you just know. But I thought it was important to focus on a few things here because this is very important. Because when you have people whose states of consciousness that are plugging into a television set, plug into mass media, plug into a newspaper, plug into a magazine, they become aware what that is. When they have grown accustomed since childhood to believe that what it is presented to them is true, because that's the reality that they believe that they live in, because they don't know the difference between what that is and something that's different from what that is, that isn't what that is, which represents a higher speed of the Merkaba. So essentially that means is I'm choosing to give that energy because it's there, it's presenting itself. So my consciousness is experiencing what that is. I record it into my memory, and that becomes a reminder of what that is. And since I'm not choosing to delete it or get rid of it or uninstall it in my operating system as an experience that I don't want to experience because I don't know the difference between what it is and what I am, then it becomes an identity function algorithm that's recorded in your memory. Did you follow that? Okay? Believe it or not, I can say that to somebody and I can lose them halfway through the process of explaining how that works. Because they can't hold on to that much data and which is perceived that way to know the difference between what they are and what they're not. This is when we get into computers and identity functions. But I explained it in a comment that I just made to the Florida McKee. If you're trying to run on 60 million rule-based functions, which represents 60 million rules that they put on the books that you're supposed to follow, and if you don't, you're going to get electrons harvested from you, then you're choosing to interface with a parasite who's going to be draining your energy, your electrons all the time, because what you got to give back to them if you're not following that rule-based function means you now have to give away electrons to the parasite in order to make sure that you continue to follow a parasite in which you keep feeding energy to. You see how that works? A parasite is saying, listen, I don't know how to live in peace, love, harmony, and balance with the rest of the universe. So in order for me to continue to be what it is that I am through you, I've got to get that energy from you in order to maintain the relationship that you and I have with each other. So the only way that you and I can maintain the perception that we have with each other is to make sure that I keep draining your energy by you giving it to me. And therefore you'll do that because you live in fear of what I am, because that means that I live in fear of the mirror of who I am. Which means that now I believe that in order for me to continue to experience what it is I believe that I am in the mirror, I got to keep giving myself energy, which means I'm giving the electrons away to myself in order for me to believe that I'm never going to run out of energy. That's called going in reverse. That means instead of just producing more electrons that you're broadcasting because you are what love is in living service to others, upon which those electrons you're naturally giving away, you already know you're never going to run out of what you are, and electrons to power the light from which your heart wheel, man, is spinning that Merkaba like crazy. So this means that the people who decided to allow themselves to have a parasitic relationship with something that's a demon or a reptilian, it means that I believe that I'm going to run out of electrons if I don't keep giving you electrons. That's what I'm saying. Okay? Because what it means is I got to collapse my own timeline in order for me to believe that I can maintain it. If that isn't insanity, I don't know what is, folks. Okay? That's like believing that in order for me to go on forever, I have to get rid of all my energy that I'm in fear of losing, because if I don't, I'll lose myself. Okay? That's batshit crazy, as we used to say. So the only way that you're ever going to get rid of a parasite is to do what? Stop giving it electrons, which means stop giving it money. That means you have to believe in your heart and your soul and your spirit that you already have all the energy that you need, which means I don't need their black magic money. Go pull a dollar bill out and get a magnifying glass and go look up in the right-hand corner where the little owl is. And then go watch a video of the Moloch and the owl where they have in the Bohemian Grove, which means you're using satanic money, blood money. That's why when I was a child growing up, it was known throughout the company that I kept that this money right here is the root of all evil. So we're allowing blood money and evil money to be circulated. But wait, they are very sneaky. What if they tell you that we're going to go to digital binary, which means since we know your identity and we know where you are all the time, and you're part of the hive mind collective, which means you're just another robot, okay, which we're holding captive, then all we got to do is know your identity wherever you go, which is one of the reasons why I said this morning when I went to go get something to drink, they would only accept a card. Well, of course, the AI wants to know exactly where you're at all times, okay? See, when you're autonomous and you're in a higher hyperdimensional realm, if you will, we don't need to keep track of you. Okay, you're free to do whatever you want because we don't have to worry about what it is you're going to do with your energy, because when you are what love is and living light, it's naturally for us to be using our energy in love and service to others, which means we all naturally thrive together, and you're free to do what you want as a creative artist. Okay, that's not how it works here, is it? It's just the opposite of that. It's got to know where you're at all times. Why? Because it's in fear of you. Why is it in fear of us? Because it doesn't run what we run. It's in fear of what it can't do. It can't love us. It can't love itself in the mirror. So when it realizes it's got to run on energy, where do you think it's going to get that energy from? When we stop giving it energy, what happens? Bye. So when people decide to stop feeding a parasite, which is a plasma field artificial intelligence, what do you think happens? It goes bye-bye. But when you don't know the difference between what it is and you are in the mirror, what happens to you? Bye. When you're living in fear of what love is, it means you're living in fear of what source is. It means you're living in fear of living light, which is living spirit that is in that light. It means you're living in fear of what love is, and living in fear of what love is, which is what living spirit is, it is in living light. It means that you're actually living in fear of eternity. So then the only way that it knows how to continue to go on is to parasite off of others. That's the nature of how it programs people to believe that they are something that they're not. It's because they believe in the mirror that they live in fear of who they are. And when they believe that, and they are that, then they're living in fear of source. They're living in fear of the light that is used in living spirit to create a universe with. Because love is creation energy. So when you are living in fear of creation, how in the world could you ever expect to possibly go on forever? You can't. And that, unfortunately, is what becomes what I used to call wilted flowers. And why it's so painful to experience a wilted flower in a girl, especially. And then you see the males, in, for example, throughout the population who use their electrons, okay, protect themselves against that which they fear. So their defense mechanism is what? Remember, fight or flight? Fight. Using their electrons to project fear in others. How dare you? You can't attack me. You're supposed to fear me. So if I fear you because you're a predator, oops, bye. So what do? They isolate themselves from the rest of the universe. Instead of being a part of what love is and living light, to enjoy what it feels like to have all their energy thriving like crazy, instead they hold on to their electrons to protect themselves because they know they live in a vampiric, predatory, distorted energy field. That's the male side of things. Then you have the female side of things where she's pulling her electrons together to protect herself. Like I mentioned the lady the other day, it used to be when I was growing up as a child, I used to see a lot of girls holding hands with boys walking down the street everywhere I went. Because the girl knew that the boy would always protect her against anything that might try and rape her, pillage her, hurt her. See? It used to be when I grew up in America anyway, anytime anybody fell down or got injured, my God, you'd have 20 or 30 people coming to your assistance trying to help you because they love you. Because that's what they are. The golden rule. What I do to you, I do to me. I don't want to experience your suffering. I'm going to help you. See, to get you back into a state of peace and harmony again, make you well again. What you began to see over time, over the next decade, right, was less of that. Then as the next decade went along, less even more. So you began to see that the equation on the minus side, we're losing light, we're losing light, we're losing more light, we're losing more light, we're losing more light. You could actually measure it, because I measured it. I measured a complete loss of light. You can actually measure the loss, the incremental loss of light. That's why when Patty said about a year and a half ago, 25% of our magnetic shield is down. That's a big number. So now we got the Arcturians in here. There's a lot more light that's come in here now. And I saw the fence that was put up that Patty showed us. I don't have the image to put up here, but there isn't anything that's getting in or out of here that isn't love and light. So they know it's over. They can't escape. They don't have any escape routes. Okay? So when I saw, for example, the importance of this and how this sort of plays out, is that of all the time of when you think of, like the way I do anyway, in a galactic sort of sense of things, and that is, this is the most exciting time in the history of this planet, actually, when you realize how long energy harvesting has actually been going on here. Okay? That she wasn't going to rewind the clock again. Okay? So this is it. So this is the one that sticks. So this is the one in which getting rid of all the parasites, it's parasitic, that is feeding on all of our electrons, draining our energy. It's over. So what's important is for you to believe that. But that's up to you. That's not up to me. I know that. But whether everybody else knows that, that's different. So when you see that there are more and more people that are coming together in communities, in forums, on the YouTube channel, that the AI is trying to shut down, it's trying to shut it down for what reason? Same way that they were burning books. They don't want enough units of consciousness that are coming together that's raising its energy, that's raising its light, in which more units of consciousness are connecting with each other and raising their light together. And that becomes the biggest force multiplier against what is a parasite. It can no longer feed on our electrons. When it can no longer feed on our electrons, what happens? It runs out of what it's using from us in order to perpetuate itself, which has been using that energy to control us with. Now it becomes less powerful. It's losing its electrons. It's losing its force multiplier. It's no longer controlling and feeding off all the electrons that have been feeding it. And the next thing you know is it's got less and less power. It's got less and less power. It's running out of juice. It's running out of electrons. It's no longer getting electrons from us. Wow, bye. We get rid of the parasites. The other side of the equation goes up. Now we're zooming the light up. Now we're zooming the speed up. Then the light is being raised on the planet. Now what happens is we begin to dissolve all the lower experiences that represent what they are, beginning to dissolve. Now we're experiencing more of what the light is, which more of what the love is. And now we begin to realize we're losing what had a ball and chain around us. Didn't want to let us go. Didn't want to let us go. Didn't want to let us go. It's got to have our energy in order for it to sustain itself. See? It doesn't know how to live in peace. It doesn't know how to live in harmony. It doesn't know how to live in balance with itself. So the only way that it can continue to perpetuate itself is by feeding on something else that represents energy. And those that produce the most powerful energy become the batteries that it loves to drain. Okay? Because they represent the most electrons. Those are your light workers. Those are your light warriors. Okay? So that's why it's important as people are waking up to maintain the speed, maintain the love that they have within themselves or beginning to feel again, particularly with their children, okay? And maintain the passion they have for living light, which is the living light we all have in all of us, right? And that begins to raise our energy. That's why when you see this on a collective scale, and you could see this 50 years ago, because it's the same thing 50 years ago as it was today. How dare you look different from us? You're not a robot. You're supposed to be a robot. So that's why when you walk into a market, it happens that I'm not wearing a mask. Hey, you don't have a mask on. Fuck you. I ain't a fucking robot. I'm not that stupid. Okay? I mean, my God, it's like lack of light is lack of knowledge. Okay? I'm not a programmer, although I know how to program things, but I'm not going to hold another unit of consciousness captive. You're free to be who you are. You want to wear a mask? Go ahead, wear a mask. You're doing that to yourself. I'm not going to do that to myself because I need that oxygen. I want those electrons. I'm living energy, so I know what I need. You mean to tell me they don't know that? How can they not know that? You mean to tell me this is self-suicide? This is a sadomasochistic spiritual ritual exercise that they're conducting? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's what John Gatto meant when he said dumbing down America. You mean to tell me that they lack the basic knowledge of oxygen and electrons that they breathe in? Yeah. That's how bad it is. Okay? If they would have tried to do this 50 years ago, they would have never been successful. Particularly after World War II. And they knew that, of course. That's why they had to dumb everybody down to get them down to be like dumb little farm animals, as they like to call us. Okay? Stupid, what do they call us? Useless eaters. Okay? Because they see themselves as being elite. We're smarter than they are. We're more intelligent than they are. We figured this out because of our farm animals. We feed on them. Remember? We eat them. We're cannibals. They're nothing more than stupid little humans. We use them as our toys. Okay? Patty will tell you that. That's exactly how they think about us. So when they think that they've drained our battery, what it actually is they're in fear of us. God us forbid we ever get our energy up and realize how powerful we actually are. As Patty said to me one time, all the pitchforks will come out and just eradicate them. It's exactly the way she put it. Eradicate them. Because they're parasites. So what would you do if you realized you had termites eating away at the foundation of your own home? You'd get rid of them, wouldn't you? So what's the difference? Just scale it up a little bit. Those are your crime families. That's why the last one that I know of that's going down is the Han Dynasty, which is China. Okay? Those dragon families. Of course, again, we're into dragons, right? What side of the dragon are we running? The light side or the dark side of the dragon? I simplify it for me. I am what love is in living spirit. I'm spirit. Okay? I'm not the matter part. Living spirit. Living energy. Living light, which is what love is. Trying to purify the spirit. Make it simple. keep it simple, right? KISS, remember the KISS message? Keep it simple. So I thought that was important because as we accelerate into November 3rd, oh man, are they going to ratchet up the fear? Here comes the fear. Here comes the fear. Here comes the fear. We give them more love. We give them more love. We give them more love. They simply accelerate the speed of their own separation. Because as Dolores Cannon once said to us, they will inherit what they created. Okay? They represent a hell realm because that's the hell realm that they produce. So they will inherit their hell realm. That's the one that they're choosing to experience, so that's the one they get. Those that are what love is in living spirit, we inherit who we are because that's the nature of our energy. That's the spin of our Merkaba. So this is where we all get a choice to inherit what it is we're choosing to give energy to experience. I don't live in a hell realm. Are you kidding me? So we are the ones who are the choosers of our experience, right? Yeah. That's the beauty and magnificence of the cosmos. Is that nobody is holding our energy captive, choosing for us what we experience. You're free to experience whatever you choose to using your creative ability to do it with. That's creation. Creativity is creation. And when you begin using the creative side of who you are, you begin to realize how much power you actually have. They don't have that ability to do that. Reptilians don't. They don't have any creativity. They hijack it off us. So when they try and think that they're elite, just like yesterday when I just got here to Medford, Oregon, and I got off the bus, off an Amtrak train, I met a lady who's, how do I put this? She's born and raised Oregonian. So she can remember what it was like 50 years ago. And this is just another footnote in history because the Church of Satan that was in San Francisco. This would go back to the 1960s and the drug culture, okay, and how they killed off all the intellectuals in a lot of the universities who were trying to help wake people up during that time. And you'll notice, for example, because I work for the Forest Service up the road where the Applegate Lake is, and guess what? When I was there wasn't a lake there. And if you go underneath there, you'll find out there is a deep underground cabal base there, okay? I used to live right near there, okay, working for the Forest Service and Wildland Fire at that time, right? And then all of a sudden you began to see a slowward march migration out of San Francisco that came into Ashland, and then it moved up into the Applegate Valley, and what did they start doing? Growing the wineries, just like Pelosi, north in the wineries. And if you associate the wineries with the cabal, you begin to see the tunnel networks with the children. And then when you begin to look at the winery here in the Applegate Valley, up above Medford, and then the deep underground military base, then you begin to realize for people that have been around Medford, Oregon for a long time, have they noticed the change? If you go into Jacksonville, Oregon, which used to be known as a gold town, they'll show you the little wooden carvings of an old gold miner with his little gold pan, mining gold out of either the Rogue River or the Klamath River. You can still mine the Klamath River. There's still a lot of gold that flows down that river. Okay? It's also big bear country, which is why I'm back here. Okay? Because I'm White Bear Clan, which is bear spirit. So I know with the fire that burned up through the Klamath, there are a lot of my friends out there that suffered an enormous amount of trauma from those fires as a result of the dark. Okay? So this is one of the reasons why when I talked to her yesterday, she talked to me about her grandfather who was an old logger who's still living up there near the Applegate before they put the dam in, before they put the base